This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, all of you all. So, in the last hour, you have been started with the herpes viruses, which are the largest known viruses, DNA viruses. Of all the viruses are tiny organism. Of all the viruses, herpes viruses are the largest. Of the herpes virus, cytomegalovirus, which we'll be dealing now, is the largest of all the viruses. So these herpes viruses, you would have had an introduction in the previous class by Mrs. Rafi that already these cause a very diseases which may be simple lesions to a very complicated cancers. So herpes simplex 2, you would have seen that it causes cervical cancer. Now in this part, in this hour, you will be seeing the other herpes viruses like Epstein-Barr virus and cytomegalovirus and herpes virus 8. All these cause cancer. So these lesions may be very simple to a very complicated lesions like cancer. So herpes viruses, Epstein-Barr virus causes various types of cancers like gastric carcinoma, nasopharyngeal carcinoma, lymphomas, Hodgkin's, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Even cytomegalovirus also cause a very serious disease, choriocarcinomas, and they cause very severe congenital infections. These congenital infections might be life-threatening or various abnormalities which might be dangerous. So coming to these herpes viruses now, we'll start with Epstein-Barr virus, followed by cytomegalovirus, and little bit about herpes virus 6, 7, and finally we'll deal with Kaposi sarcoma. So Kaposi sarcoma concept came into picture only after the HIV came into the picture. In fact, HIV was discovered from the Kaposi sarcoma. Suddenly, there was an outbreak of some cancerous lesions. That was Kaposi sarcoma in the developed countries like US. When they went into depth of these Kaposi sarcoma, they felt that these are caused by herpes virus 8, which had an antigenic similarity to herpes viruses, but major part was immunodeficiency. So these viruses though cause diseases in various normal individuals also, which are very usually self-limiting, whereas our immune system is weak, which may be due to various reasons. That may be due to congenital immunodeficiencies or due to organ transplantation or due to HIV or by various other reasons. If your immune system goes wrong, then these viruses can be life-threatening and dangerous. Not that they don't cause any disease in the normal individuals or immunocompromised hosts, but that usually are self-limiting and the patient usually responds well to the treatment. So with this background, I just want to move on. These are large group of complex viruses which you are already discussed, but still little bit about history before we going into the detail. So these leading causes human viral diseases, they have a wide spectrum of disease. Some have wide host range, others have narrow host range. One more point which I want to tell about Epstein-Barr virus and cytomegalovirus, which we are dealing, are usually species-specific viruses. So herpes derived from the Greek herpin, meaning to creep, zoster, a Greek word meaning brittle, shingles derived from Latin singe. Okay. Infect both warm-blooded and cold-blooded animals. These cause I've already told. And one more important feature of these herpes viruses, which would already been discussed in the previous class, is their latent infection and reactivations, which are very common in these herpes viruses. So it's a double-stranded DNA genome, relatively large complex of viruses, largest known human pathogen. Human herpes viruses family include 3: alpha herpes viruses, beta herpes virus, and gamma herpes virus. Alpha herpes virus can be herpes virus simplex virus, 1 and 2, which already has been discussed in the previous hour, and varicella zoster, that is your chicken pox, which is very common viral infections. Most of us would have had infection with the chicken pox in our childhood only. In fact, childhood infections are less dangerous when compared to the adult infections. So beta herpes viruses, which we'll be dealing now, cytomegalovirus, herpes virus 5, herpes virus 6 and 7. 6 and 7 are lymphotrophic viruses, not of much importance, just mild disease, exanthem is caused, which we'll be discussing in the later last at the end of the class, 1 or 2 slides about that. And gamma herpes virus, that is Epstein-Barr virus, herpes virus 4, and Kaposi sarcoma herpes virus KSHV, that is herpes virus 8. So these Kaposi sarcoma has been dealt in detail, have been studied in detail only after the advent of HIV. So these are the group of herpes viruses which we'll be discussing, of which cytomegalovirus and Epstein-Barr virus, that is 4 and 5, are very important and which account for major diseases. So we'll be discussing in detail about these and other herpes viruses 6, 7 and 8. We'll be discussing one slide as we move on. So classification, alpha herpes viruses, variable host range will be there, short replicative cycle, whereas beta restricted host range. So only I was discussing about Epstein-Barr virus and cytomegalovirus. Beta herpes virus, cytomegalovirus is included in this. They have a restricted host range, that is species specific. Humans means humans only. Gamma, lymphocyte associated. So coming to the Epstein-Barr virus, that is herpes virus 4. So it is called as ubiquitous herpes virus, found widely in the environment, cause kissing disease. The simple word for this is kissing disease. Only human and subhuman primates are infected, that is species specific. B cells have receptor CD21 molecules for the virus. Epstein-Barr virus infected cells are transferred, so they become capable of continuous growth in vitro. Virus associated with several human tumors. So this initial little bit one slide about the history, you can see these 3 people, that is Epstein, Ackham and Barr. These 3 people were in 1964, they observed in culture lymphoma cells. So they were the first ones who isolated the virus as major target cell is B lymphocyte. So nature of the disease, all these diseases, especially herpes, are periodic reactivation, latent infection and lifelong persistence. So lifelong persistence is very common. Periodic reactivation, especially in the immunocompromised individuals, it can be very dangerous. Reservoir of infection is humans, as already told, it is species specific. Source of infection, you can see human saliva, blood and blood products are the sources of infection. You can see the diagram also here, Epstein-Barr virus. This is the primary infection. This is the persistent infection. Primary infection, B cells are infected. From the B cells, Epstein-Barr virus promotes growth of B cell. Latency, then here is the latency, priming of T cells. Reactivation is there. Again, persistent infection. All this cycle goes on. So they have many types of antigens. One is early antigens, that is non-structural viral replication proteins. Late antigens, that is non-structural, are capsid antigens, whereas late antigens, structural antigens of viral capsid and envelope. Late phase antigens synthesized during latent infection, like Epstein-Barr virus nuclear antigens, 6 subtypes are there. Latent membrane antigen, 2 subtypes are there. So mode of transmission of the Epstein-Barr virus, there are direct and indirect methods. Direct methods, oral contact during kissing, that is, so only it is called as kissing disease, whereas indirect, blood products, bone marrow transplantation are the major routes of transmission, which I have already told, but it's a repetition one more. Diseases associated with Epstein-Barr viruses, as already told, it may be a simple disease like infectious mononucleosis. These infectious mononucleosis term is used for the patient with fever-like illness, headache, malaise, body pains, all this will be there. Usually that subsides with itself with time, usually seen in immunocompetent individuals. These infectious mononucleosis word is not limited only to the Epstein-Barr virus disease, but also you can use for the cytomegalovirus infection and also some of the other viral infections. So it's just a term where you have fever, headache, malaise. So general, it's a infectious flu-like illness. Apart from that, you have malignancies associated with Epstein-Barr virus. These malignancies may be Hodgkin's, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Burkitt's lymphoma is the most common one, which was initially identified. Inflammatory bowel disease, gastric cancer, and the major disease is nasopharyngeal carcinoma. So nasopharyngeal carcinoma is very dangerous. Apart from Hodgkin's lymphoma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is also seen. Oral hairy leukopenia, all these are the other diseases which can be seen with the Epstein-Barr virus. So infectious mononucleosis, as already told, headache, malaise, fatigue, sore throat, enlarged lymph nodes and spleen in signs of hepatitis in some. Complications are there in the normal course. Usually in the normal course, they usually recover with time. Usually any viral infections, once the immune system is good, they usually recover, except for some viral infections where the diseases can be too dangerous. So how actually this occurs, the pathogenesis, little bit about this Epstein-Barr virus infection. You can see they enter the oropharyngeal epithelium. From the oropharyngeal epithelium, they attack the local B cells. From the local B cells, they spread via the blood to the liver and lymph nodes. Whereas here oropharyngeal epithelium, from the oropharyngeal epithelium, there is virus shedding. From the virus shedding continues often after recovery also. Once this goes on continuing, that may lead to nasopharyngeal carcinoma. Here you can see after this first step, local B cells, because B cells are the receptors here, at that stage of point, your cell-mediated immunity becomes active. T cells and antibodies are produced. They destroy the B cells, gradually clear. So they destroy the affected cells. So those affected cells are cleared, and this results in immunopathology. So human system is now capable of coping up with the Epstein-Barr virus infection. Or if you are not able to cope up with the infection, these B cells, local B cells multiplication continues. They spread via the blood to the liver, lymph nodes, spleen. As a result of this, more B cells are infected because these are the lymphatic systems where B cells and T cells are more in number. As a result of which, all these systems are infected. As a result of these may lead to cancers. These cancers are restricted infection, no lysis of Epstein-Barr virus DNA latent in B cells, or polyclonal activation leading to raised immunoglobulins, or it may lead to cancers. Cancers may be Hodgkin's, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, Burkitt's lymphoma in South Africa, and gastric carcinoma. All these can be varied. All this can be the result of infection. So if the patient recovers at this stage where immunopathology, your immune system is active, then there will be complete recovery. Maybe they may go into the latent infection. That infection usually is not dangerous except when there is the low immune system, where there may be immune activation, reactivation of the virus in such cases. So in AIDS, it may cause oral hairy leukoplakia and lymphomas. Other diseases like lymphoproliferative diseases and chronic fatigue syndrome has also been noted. You can see these pictures. This is leukoplakia, the whitish lesions, flat white lesions. These are flat white lesions that cannot be brushed from the oral mucosa. This may look similar to Candida, but Candida infection is completely different. This is thrush. Thrush is oral candidiasis. You can see this is the leukoplakia and this is the case, which white plaque that easily bruises off with underlying erythema. This is with the thrush, that is Candida, whereas leukoplakia. Both look very similar, so I've just put up the difference between two. This is oral hairy leukoplakia lesions associated with HIV. White hyperkeratoid plaque usually distributed along the lateral border of the tongue. Vertical white striations may appear hairy. Lesions are typically painless and benign. So laboratory diagnosis, you can see, very important in the laboratory diagnosis. As we go on, why diagnosis is important? Because these have some of the supporting drugs like antivirals, acyclovir, may not completely cure the disease, but sometimes you can expect a recovery. Some immunological agents can also be used for the recovery. So diagnosis is very important, and also to know the prevalence. So here you can have a microscopy feature, serological methods, isolation, and molecular methods. Again, I would like to describe you that the present pandemic is by coronavirus is with the viruses only. For all the viral infections, please remember molecular methods hold a very high post when compared to the other diagnosis. Specimens like blood and saliva can be used here. Molecular assays, so only I have started with the molecular assays. PCR, polymerase chain reaction, different types of PCRs are available from conventional to the RT-PCR methods. So real-time PCR is the now which we are using, detects Epstein-Barr virus DNA. Hybridization techniques also can be used very much. Amplification technique, hybridization, blind probe assays, all these can be of useful. Real-time qualitative and quantitative PCR both are there. Quantifies Epstein-Barr virus DNA and detects Epstein-Barr virus RNA also. See, you can see there are viruses where you can detect for HIV also. You can detect both, though it's an RNA virus, you can detect both RNA and HIV DNA, because during the replication, when you understand the replication in detail, you will understand why when RNA will come and when DNA will come. So it is detects Epstein-Barr virus RNA and quantifies Epstein-Barr virus DNA. So you can know the viral load. What is the viral load and what will be the pathogenesis depending upon the viral load. Isolation of the viruses from the specimens like saliva, peripheral blood, lymphoid tissue. By immortalization of normal human lymphocytes, usually obtained from the umbilical cord blood. By immortalization of normal human lymphocytes. Why is this normal? Human lymphocytes only it will grow, because this is species specific. That only I was trying to explain you. These are species specific organisms. Disadvantages like it is laborious, time consuming 6 to 8 weeks, requires specialized facilities, seldom performed. So serology, antigen detection and antibody detection. Antigen detection by direct immunofluorescence assay, antibody detection specific and non-specific. Specific ELISA, hemagglutination assay, complement fixation test, and indirect immunofluorescence test. All these can be used for detection of the antibodies. Non-specific tests like Paul Bunner test, differential absorption test, and monospot test, all these can be used. So these Paul Bunner test was it's a heterophile agglutination test which I'll be describing you, because Paul Bunner test most of the time it will come as a 2 marks or 5 marks question. Though Epstein-Barr virus also can be a 5 marks question. So this Paul Bunner test, though it's a non-specific test, was used to a large extent in the older days. So Paul Bunner test, if you see, this is a tube agglutination test which uses sheep RBCs to detect heterophile antibodies in the patient serum. So these heterophile antibodies usually agglutinate with the sheep RBCs or ox RBCs or horse RBCs. But Paul Bunner test uses sheep RBCs, that is other species antibodies also, other species RBCs. So procedure what we do is, first we take the serum of the patient, blood is withdrawn, serum is separated. After separation of the serum, inactivation of the serum for 56 degrees for 30 minutes is done. Patient serum then mixed with equal volumes of 1% sheep RBCs. Mixed with equal volumes of 1% sheep RBCs. Incubation at 37 degrees for 4 hours. So incubation 37 degrees for 4 hours. Results, agglutination titer are compared. These agglutination titers, based on this titer, whether we have positive or negative, we can tell, as we are doing with the Vidal test. So drawbacks, maybe because it's a non-specific test, this is also, since the Paul Bunner test can also come positive immediate in the normal individuals, or after serum sickness, or after serum transmission. After transfusion also that can come out to be positive. So how do you differentiate this, whether these heterophile antibodies are virus specific? In such cases, they brought into picture differential absorption test. In differential absorption test, apart from the sheep RBCs, we are using the ox, guinea pig kidney cells. So those, guinea pig kidney cells are used to differentiate between both. So monospot, so that we can be specific whether it's of normal individual or after serum transfusion, or it is due to the Epstein-Barr virus. Guinea pig kidney cells. So absorption with the guinea pig So if there is absorption with the sheep RBCs, no absorption with the guinea pig kidney cells, then it is taken as positive for the Epstein-Barr virus. So monospot test, to avoid all this confusion and time consuming everything, they came out to be a rapid test, that is monospot test, modified heterophene agglutination test. It's a slide test where it uses sheep RBCs and guinea pig kidney cells together and directly identify whether it is related to the Epstein-Barr virus or not. So excellent sensitivity and specificity, which has almost replaced the other test. So, but this is a non-specific test. We need to take supportive diagnosis. Then only we can come for the conclusion. So treatment, there is no specific treatment available. Supportive measures are the mainstay of treatment. One is acyclovir. Antiviral drugs can be tried like acyclovir, vanciclovir, ganciclovir, many other. Antibody to CD20, rituximab, effective in some. That is, this is called as immunotherapy. Immunotherapy is fast developing and it has a promising results also for various types of treatments, especially for viruses where we don't have proper treatment for all the viral infections. Maybe in future we can expect a good results. So antibody to CD20, rituximab, effective in some. Prevention, no vaccine is available. So that's going on. So second group, that is human cytomegalovirus, that is herpes virus 5. So main cytomegalovirus, though causes various diseases, it is known for its congenital infections, which can be very, very severe. So only I've just put up a baby's picture also here to know the importance of that. So formerly known as salivary gland viruses, ubiquitous herpes viruses of humans and animals, largest virus of the herpes. In fact, herpes viruses are the largest, of which cytomegalovirus is still largest. Poses an important public health problem because of high frequency of congenital infection. History, you can see name given by Weller and co-workers in 1960 because infected cell, cyto, Greek, cell is enlarging, megalic, Greek, large. So because of that only, it has been given as cytomegalovirus. In Greek, cell is enlarging, megalic, large. Inclusion bodies and inclusion bearing cells were first shown by Ribert in 1881, Goodpasture and Talbot in 1921. First to suggest cytomegalic nature of infected cells by Smith, Rowe and Weller in 1956. These independently isolated by human cytomegalovirus. You can see these are the inclusion bodies. These are the inclusion bodies. These are powdery type B inclusion bodies. This help in the diagnosis. These are due to the multiplication of the viruses. Inclusion bodies are found in different virus groups, of which this is one important, followed by rabies, where diagnosis mostly by the inclusion bodies. So it's a complex herpes virus, 150 to 200 nanometer. You can see it has a nucleocapsid, tegument, genome, membrane, envelope, everything similar to that of other herpes virus. It's a double-stranded DNA virus. Very species and cell type specific. Human cytomegalovirus replicates in vitro only in human fibroblasts and slow replicating. Disease is rare, but infection with the virus is extremely common. Infect 60 to 90% of the population worldwide. Typically asymptomatic infection. Risk factors like low socioeconomic status and poor hygiene are the one. Nature of the disease, periodic reactivation, latent infection and lifelong persistence, as we are discussed with the other herpes viruses. Reservoir of infection is humans. So modes of transmission, you can see again here also we have described as direct and indirect way of transmission. Direct transmission by close contact and by vertical transmission. Close contact by body fluid and during coitus, that is intranatal. Vertical antenatal by placenta, intranatal contact with maternal body fluid during pregnancy, and postnatal during breastfeeding. Okay, almost here close contact during coitus also is almost intranatal contact only. Indirect in hospital, post transfusion mononucleosis, blood and blood products, very rare, and organ transplantation. Organ transplantation disease can be very severe. So these are the different modes of transmission of the cytomegalovirus. Here vertical transmission can be dangerous. So which stage of transmission also we don't know. Any trimester infection can be serious. So we have divided the clinical manifestations into infections in the normal host, infections in the immunocompromised host, congenital and perinatal infections, because normal host usually self-limiting and they do recover very good, recovery is very good, whereas in immunocompromised host diseases can be very dangerous, life-threatening also, disseminated infection, pneumonia, meningitis, encephalitis, they may go for any complications, whereas congenital and perinatal infections, congenital mean defects in the baby, which may be range from simple defects to complicated lesions like heart infections, microcephaly, all this can be there. You can see incubation period is 4 to 8 weeks for systemic infection. Disease is an infectious mononucleosis-like syndrome characterized by malaise, myalgia, fever, liver functional abnormality, as you have seen with Epstein-Barr virus. The same one, lymphocytosis with heterophil antibody in the serum. Most infections are subclinical. Cell-mediated immunity is depressed with primary infections. So immunosuppressed host, which I was trying, which may be in the HIV infected individuals or cancer patients following intensive chemotherapy or some stem cell and solid organ transplant recipients. All these infections are at high risk of all of these are at high risk of the infections with the all are high risk with the cytomegalovirus infections. Especially, you should be very careful with the stem cell, hematopoietic stem cell transplants. They are very sensitive individuals. They are very prone. You would have seen in the higher institutes where there is stem cell transplantation. They are isolated in a very clean and proper environment where little bit of small contaminated air can be life-threatening and whole of the transplant can be lost. So viral excretion is increased in immunosuppressed patients. Infection more apt to become disseminated. Pneumonia, common complications. Reactivated infections may be as virulent as the primary infections. In the immunosuppressed host, especially in the AIDS patients, if CD4 count is less than 50 per microliter, that may lead to chorioretinitis, gastroenteritis, dementia, and disseminated cytomegalovirus infections. So in these AIDS patients, they may lead to various lesions that may be chorioretinitis, gastroenteritis, dementia, and disseminated cytomegalovirus infections. So these are not the limit of the disease. It can, I just want to show you that these can be very serious infections. So in the organ transplant patients, also I was telling they may cause very serious infections, of which bilateral interstitial pneumonia, rejection of renal allografts, febrile leukopenia, or obliterative bronchiolitis, graft atherosclerosis. So all these can be very dangerous and serious infections, especially in the organ transplant individuals. So because already their body immune system is weak, they are undergoing a major procedure, already they are on the immunosuppression. So any complications, minor complications can be dangerous, but these are one of the serious complications where treatment becomes complicated. So congenital and perinatal infections, intrauterine transmission occurs in about 1% of the seropositive women. 1/3 of pregnant women with primary infection transmit the virus. No evidence that gestational age at the time of maternal infection affects expression of the disease in fetus. So some of the diseases you can see for like toxoplasmosis and all, first trimester infections are more dangerous when compared to the second trimester infections. In such cases, but here no evidence to suggest which gestational age can be dangerous or which can be less severe. So congenital cytomegalovirus infections, most newborns with congenital cytomegalovirus infections are asymptomatic, but some may present progressive hearing loss. Some may present congenitally infected newborns may present with symptoms at birth, or they may present with hepatosplenomegaly. Some may present with chorioretinitis. Some may present with petechiae, purpurae, and jaundice. Sometimes microcephaly, which may be very dangerous. Small size for gestational age. Head is small, micro. So all these cases may be see some of these microcephaly, hearing defects and all are not reversible. So this can be dangerous. the baby has to stay with these congenital abnormalities for the life. So these infectious sources, breast milk like immune complexes, toddlers, saliva and urine, sex, semen, cervical secretions during pregnancy, uterine infection can be there. From that, placental infection, primary and recurrent infections that will lead to fetal transmission. So in fetal transmission, 20 to 40% of the fetal transmissions may be symptomatic, 5 to 10%, 0.2, 2.2% asymptomatic, 90 to 95% in that. So if you can see here, symptomatic 5 to 10% only intrauterine in that symptomatic individuals, only 5 to 10% can present with intrauterine growth restriction, retinitis, or microcephaly, jaundice, hepatosplenomegaly may be there, or permanent damage 50 to 80%, deafness may be there, mental retardation can be there, blindness can be there, and in some 20% of the individuals death can be there. So usually symptomatic individuals also, very few symptomatic children might present with serious infections, and whereas in asymptomatic individuals, 8% can be there, 7 to 28% definitely. You can see microcephaly, this is the normal head, and microcephaly, small head. So that can be dangerous. Intranatal and postnatal infections usually are asymptomatic. Maternal antibody protects more against development of serious disease in infant than viral transmission. So laboratory diagnosis, again, microscopy, isolation, molecular methods, and serological techniques. Specimens can be urine, blood, saliva, tears, semen, breast milk, cervical secretions. Microscopy, detection of the inclusion bodies. In fact, initially this was the only method there before all the molecular techniques and all. Now you have see typical owl's eye appearance. This is the typical owl's eye appearance in the histopathological sections. These are intranuclear powdery type B inclusion bodies, perinuclear cytoplasmic inclusion bodies. So depending upon the stain used, the color will be different. You can see this is Leishman stain. So you have this proper your Leishman stain, eosin and hematoxin staining. This is the different staining technique, so your appearance will be different here. Isolation from the specimens like throat washings and urine. Cell lines used is human fibroblasts only. Cytopathic effect, you can see these are the human fibroblasts which may be present from these are skin lesions, skin fibroblasts. 2 to 3 weeks usually needed for the appearance of cytological changes. Small foci of swollen translucent cells with large intranuclear inclusions. Virus phase cell associated. So all these can be used. See, this is the cell culture technique. These are cell culture bottles. These are cell culture bottles which are kept in a rotor. So these isolation may be different for different one. You may ask why isolation is required. Yes, for the antigen preparation, for the vaccine preparations, for the drugs, all these you require the isolation to study the antigenic properties of the viruses. So normal routine virus isolation takes a very long time. So now modified virus isolation techniques have come into the picture, like shell vial techniques for early growth, 1 to 2 days only. Procedure, centrifugation of the cell culture mixed with the specimen, enhanced cell contact and viral replication, detection by viral antigen direct immunofluorescence technique. Advantages, viral load is low, cytopathic effect takes several weeks to appear. If viral load is low also, you can detect the virus. That is the major advantage you can see in the isolation. See, for everything, antibody detection, antigen detection, or molecular techniques, this much amount of viruses should be present, then only you can detect. For major benefit of this viral isolation for diagnostic purposes is especially, even if the viral load is low, you can detect the virus. So serological techniques, antibody detection and antigen detection are there. Antigen detection, acute infection, more specific when compared to the antibody detection. Antigen detection where PP65 and PP67 proteins in the specimens, that is leukocytes, you can try to identify. Antibody detection, both IgM and IgG antibodies can be used. IgM antibody 1 to 2 weeks of infection, whereas IgG persists for lifelong. Recent or ongoing infection, Pregnancy and congenital infection, especially in a pregnant lady, if you detect IgM antibody in a pregnant lady, then you can take that it's a congenital infection. You need to consider the case as very serious. See, but look out for the congenital abnormalities and try to avoid other defects in the babies if you can. First, IgG, past infection, potential for reactivation. Other method, how are these antigen and antibody detected are by various methods like ELISA, immunofluorescence assay, indirect hemagglutination, complement fixation test. So molecular assays PCR for the detection of specific cytomegalovirus DNA designed to detect replicating virus, not latent viral genomes, can provide viral load data important in predicting the cytomegalovirus disease. So you can see in the Epstein-Barr virus, also in the cytomegalovirus, both qualitative and quantitative assays are there because they are diagnostic and also prognostic. So molecular assays have developed a large extent for the virology, especially these are useful even for HIV. You can see both qualitative and quantitative tests. So they are diagnostic and prognostic. Diagnosis only for the diagnosis, whereas prognosis to see whether patient is improving the treatment or with time is he progression good or bad. So both can be seen. So treatment ganciclovir, foscarnet, vaganciclovir, acyclovir, many antiviral drugs have come into the picture. Of course, they are of limited importance, maybe limited improvement is there, but still they are supportive. We can use especially to avoid serious complications. At least they will limit the viral replication to some extent. Maybe they may not completely cure the disease, but they are of some use in these diseases. So little bit about human herpes virus 6. Human herpes virus 6, it is also called as human T-cell lymphotrophic virus, not of much importance. Little bit only we'll study about this. History first isolated in 1986. Virus widespread in population. There are two variants, A and B. B variant is the one which causes most of the human infections. So you can see mode of transmission via oral secretions. Clinical features in children is called as sixth disease or roseola infantum or exanthema subitum. Sixth disease or roseola infantum. They have high fever and skin rash. You can see this picture. The baby has fever with a typical skin rash. This is the skin rash. This is called as pink color rash, roseola infantum. In adults, rare infectious mononucleosis like syndrome and focal encephalitis can be seen. In immunodeficiency diseases, infections persist for life. Reactivation appears common in transplant patients, common in hemopoietic stem cell transplantation. You can see in the normal individuals, it's just a self-limiting disease, whereas in immunodeficiency diseases, all these viral infections can be life-threatening. Reactivation can be life-threatening, common in hemopoietic stem cell transplant patients. Results in CNS dysfunction and increased mortality. Herpes virus 7. This is also called as human T-cell lymphotrophic virus, isolated in 1990 from activated T-cells recovered from peripheral blood lymphocytes of healthy individuals. It is also a ubiquitous agent. Persistent infections established in the salivary glands. Primary infection has been linked with roseola infantum in infants and young children. Last but not the least of all the herpes viruses, that is herpes virus 8. These are the herpes viruses which cause major infections in the humans. Other herpes viruses are also there, though they cause very simple infections. We have not dealt here in detail. Here herpes virus 8 importance increased after the advent of the HIV, where these Kaposi sarcoma lesions are very common in HIV end stage disease, where the CD4 count is very low. So Kaposi sarcoma associated herpes virus history isolated in 1994. You can see 1980 only HIV came into picture in Kaposi sarcoma specimens, not as ubiquitous as other herpes viruses. So limited distribution of the herpes virus. You can see transmission by oral secretions, sexually, homosexual transmission, especially this outbreak was seen in case of UK homosexual individuals, blood-borne transmission and organ transplant. So these are the four methods by which It can easily be transmitted from person to person. You can see here initial virus infection, that is oral epithelium through the oral secretions, cell to B cell. It has receptors with the B cell. So cell to cell transmission. So from B cell to another B cell multiplication, cell to cell spread can occur. Second, virus reactivation from the latency. That can also be one possibility if it is not a primary infection from the oral epithelium. From there, it can go to oral endothelium, latently infected vascular tissue, development of Kaposi sarcoma lesions. So control of replication and transmission by our T cells and by antibodies. So immunology, our immune system becomes active and tries to control the infection to some extent. But if this fails, because already patients HIV, immune system is weak. If this immune system is strong enough, then it can contain the disease then and there. If this immune system is weak, then it may lead to development of Kaposi sarcoma. These are the vascular tumor, highly vascular tumor affects the lymphatic endothelium and spread from one cell to the another cell. So again, clinical features, immunocompetent and immunodeficiency diseases. Immunocompetent, usually fever and rash, usually self-limiting. Kaposi sarcoma in the immunodeficiency diseases, which can be very life-threatening, followed by primary effusion lymphoma, body cavity lymphomas, Castleman's disease, lymphoproliferative disorder of B cells. So all these can be the diseases in case of immunodeficiency individuals. So immunocompetent and immunodeficiencies, the main importance of this herpes virus 8 Kaposi sarcoma holds with the immunodeficiency diseases. That may be Kaposi sarcoma, primary effusion lymphoma, body cavity lymphomas, Castleman's disease, that is lymphoproliferative disorder of B cells. So very little about Kaposi sarcoma. You can see before I go into the theory part, let me see, you can see the proper colored lesions. These are red colored lesions and these are violet colored lesions. These are because of the affecting of the lymphatic and vascular system. It gives the typical appearance. Soft tissue sarcoma of the vascular origin, red to purple color growth under the skin, mouth, oral mucosa, lymph nodes and other organs. See, you can see this, how bad is the lesions. You can see all these lesions. So this is your end of your other part of the herpes virus. With this, we'll end all the most major chapter, that is herpes virus, that is DNA viruses. In the next class, we'll be studying about other viruses. Please utilize your time and start reading all these viruses. Thank you.
This conference will now be recorded.